Hi everyone, it's Michael here from Messenger Bag Media, and today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going through and showing how to use Premiere Pro to do certain types of editing. We're actually here with my uncle who's looking to edit a skiing video of some of my family members, and we're going to show him how to keyframe so that you can follow along with the skier as well as some other Premiere Pro shortcuts. Stay tuned.
So, David, is there a specific way that would be the best for me to start?
The thing I'm most interested in is, especially for these skiing videos, I am not brave enough to be 10 feet from the skier. And so there's a lot of videos that could be enhanced if I could learn about how to sort of basically zoom in and follow the subject as the subject moves about the frame. So, how do you enhance, there's some parts of him that are going down a fairly steep hill fairly quickly, and it would be really cool to be a lot closer to him.
Hmm.
And so I would say that that would be a big thing
The
for all
main thing.
these videos. And then I had a couple of I haven't quite figured out how to use the template, the project template thing that Adobe has to download. I haven't quite figured out how to use that. And I don't really know much about bins at this point.
Okay, so I can show you that too. I was figuring out templates because I don't personally really use templates. I usually start from scratch, but I probably should be. So I took it as an opportunity to learn it myself.
Oh, okay.
So I'll show you kind of how to make, like, do you want to make your own template? Right. Okay. Well, so I'll show you how to create a project from a template, and then I'll show you kind of how I organize my bins, and hopefully that
Yeah,
helps you.
yeah, that would be great.
So I'll show you kind of from starting a new project. So when you click new project, you have, you can name it. So I'll just do Jan 28 demo. Name it whatever you want. You can pick where you want to save it. I'm
Yep.
sure you're all used to that. And then you have this option here for template. So when you drop down, you have the options of the templates that you have. I've pre-made this one with your footage and with the folders that I'll show you of how I usually do it. But you basically can just then select it. And then I have skip import mode off because I prefer to just import my footage manually. But if you unchecked it, it would bring you, I'll show you. I can skip it after. It brings you to a page where you can go through your whole computer library and pick, from your desktop or documents or whatever drives you have, any footage that you want, and then you can import it all immediately and then organize it in your project. But I personally prefer to just skip that, and we only have one clip, so I don't need to do that this time. All right, so this is the project file. Actually, I'll refresh the workspace here into editing.
So you start with editing as your
This is
first.
probably what your workspace kind of looks like right now, right? Assuming you haven't adjusted anything.
Yeah, I went to starter just because of it seemed
Okay.
like I don't know that I was a starter, but I mean, but yeah, if you prefer something else, let's do that.
Yeah, so if this is what it looks like for you, I personally wouldn't work in this. I don't like the fact that there's no preview window, it seems. It's only the program and it just looks like a little bit, well, it looks like a starter setup. So if it works for what you're using, then feel free, but I'm gonna switch it over into editing
Editing.
mode
Okay,
personally.
sure.
I like using that. I mean, I switch between different modes all the time. So, if I'm working with color, I'll go into the color panel and then you'll see it gives you options with your lumetri color. There's not many options right now because there's no footage queued up, but audio, captions and graphics, I personally jump between all of them because it gives you the right workspace, but for like zooming in and following, editing is going to be perfect. So these are the bins that I already have set up, and this is the way that I usually do it. What I don't like is the way that editing immediately has it, the way it has it organized in these bins, where if I want to, let's say, look at my video, I have to click in here, and now I have subfolders, and then I have to click into, this one, so now I have my clip. But if I want to go back, I need to go back here, and sometimes when you keep doing that, you get so many different, like, panels
Yep.
it just gets really annoying, especially if you're trying to work through quickly. It can be a pain. So what I do instead is I go down to the list view and then it collapses them into a list.
Yep.
So if I want to see my video folder now, I can just drop down and I can see what's in my B-roll and collapse it all, which is for me saves me a lot of time. So That makes a big difference for me.
And
To make bins,
all
yeah,
these
sorry,
bins have appeared because you set them up in your template.
in my template. So yeah, so if you come up with a bin like organization that you like, then you can go up to the top file here. You can see this drop down, right? Yep, and then you can do save as template and then just name it whatever you want and click save. And then when you go to start a new project, you can click from template. The only thing I'll caution is that I was trying to do that with just bins and no media, and it didn't work. So you have to have some kind of media in there also for it to save, it seems, for some reason. So if there's like a type of overlay or something or music that you'll use often, it might be good just to kind of have that already queued up into your music folder. And then because I don't know, when I was trying to queue it up before, if I didn't have a media like in a folder, it didn't recognize it. So I don't know if it's just a glitch or what. And then so for creating bins, obviously you know this, right? You know how to create bins. You just click the new bin button and then you can delete them and you can make subfolders. And yeah, is there anything else for bins that you want me
Well,
to walk through?
so are these physical, are these folders? If you reveal, is there a folder in Finder?
No, it's not like Lightroom. It's not like Lightroom where those are reflecting real folders. So if I rename this, it just doesn't rename any folder on my desktop or anything. It doesn't have to be, linked to some kind of exact folder. This is all organized in Premiere, and then every video file is linked externally,
Okay,
or every
so
media file.
you haven't imported anything yet. So,
No.
so if you're going to import media into the video file, you click on it.
Yeah, I would probably literally just, I already have this one in here, but let's take this little audio thing and would just drag it in to my audio,
Okay,
into music, and then it's in there. It doesn't change where it was in Finder. It just is organizing it within the project.
okay, that's fine. Good.
Yes. Cool. So that's all that I have on bins. If there's anything else specifically, let me know, but that's all. Okay, so now I guess I can show you how to do the pan and follow.
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay. So I'll create a new sequence. I like to have my sequences in a separate folder because they can get pretty messy. And I'm pretty certain this video you gave me is 4K, right?
It is. Well, it might be more than that because I think the GoPro cuts 4K out of it, I think.
Oh, okay. Do you remember what frame rate you were shooting at? I don't remember off the top of my head.
I thought it was 29.97.
So I usually just like that. And then if you want more, particular control, you can go into the settings and color management tab and everything. But for this, I think Rec 709 is fine. That's standard. And then it's just, I'm doing a 1920 by 1080 sequence because if we're going to be zooming in, I don't want to be losing resolution. So I don't know if, unless you have a particular use case where you need this in 4K, I'd recommend if you're going to be cropping it 100% onto a footage, you do it at like just regular high definition.
So, okay, I'm missing something there. So, if the source is higher than 1080, are you saying you're going to work in 1080 so when you crop it down, it still has 1080 resolution?
Yeah, because if I bring this, so when I drop this into my sequence, you'll see that it's saying this clip is
Yeah.
mismatching. It's a higher resolution than your sequence. I'm okay with that because if I click keep existing settings, you'll see I'm really zoomed in now. If I go
Oh,
up
okay.
into my effects control panel here and click on my file, you'll see under video and motion there's scale.
Yeah.
And if I scale this back to 50%, that's the full frame. And it still looks beautiful in 1080 because 1080 is still high resolution and you're not losing. In fact, you're downscaling, which means you just get more information for every pixel. So it looks great. But if I want to now zoom in on your subject and get closer and go at 100%, I'm not losing any resolution. This is still full 1080. If I start going up above 100% scale, now I'm losing resolution. But if you started in a 4K file, as soon as you popped up to, let's say, 200%, like I am now, you'd be having dropped down to a 1080p video in a 4K frame, which just isn't going to look as good when it renders out, if that makes sense. So I'm going to start at 50%. So we'll start here. Do you want me to start zoomed out and zoom in, or do you want it to already be kind of set in the frame that you want?
Sure, zoom in just to show the zoom in, but then follow him filling the frame more.
So, okay. So the way that I do this is I'd start, if you go to the motion panel here, you'll see that scale and position of these little clocks beside them, and these are toggle animations. So I'll click both of them. And these are keyframes. So basically, they're points in which you're telling the computer that you want it to be this large, or you want it to be in this position by this frame. So if I, let's say, let's say I go 1 second in, which would be, I guess, that's okay, that's 1 full second in now into the timeline. It's actually pretty quick. Let's give it maybe, I'll give it 2 seconds just so it's a bit of a better move in. Now I can go and click into my scale and bring it up to 100. And you'll see it made a new keyframe in there. So if I drag this back to the beginning, you'll see it zooms in. But it hasn't changed position at all. It's just zooming in directly into the frame and then it hard stops. So you can toggle between your keyframes here. If I go onto my keyframe, I can now adjust my position to also be following him. So now
And
he's kind of
so how
center
did
frame.
so you clicked on the number there and you just knew that X is on the left and Y is on the right or something?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just muscle memory for me. Yeah,
And then
on the left,
you physically, how are you moving the numbers so quickly? Are you grabbing?
yeah, so you have options. You can either, if you want to do fine adjustment, you can either use your arrow keys up and down to move
Yeah.
it slightly, or if you know exactly the position you want it to be, you can just,
Yeah.
type it in.
So
Or,
you're using the arrow keys to move it around there.
well, the third thing you can do is you can also just grab it and drag left and right.
Where are you putting you're grabbing the footage or
You grab the number.
oh and just drag the number left or right? Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you can
Okay.
just drag it left or right,
All
and then
right.
it
That would
goes
have taken
either
me a
up or
long
down.
time to figure out. Okay, very good.
Sorry, yeah,
No,
it's
no,
one of
that's
those
great.
things I don't even realize that I did it.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so perfect. So now if I go back to the beginning of the clip and I click play, you can see it zooms in and then it hard stops there. But he keeps
Yeah.
moving back and forth. So especially here, he starts going around for reals.
Yeah, and that's still just zooming in and getting him in the center of the frame accomplishes it enough. It looks like so if I went back and moved the position a little more to the left, it would stop him from going out of the frame a little further down the hill.
Yep. But what you could also do is you could follow. So if I drag it out here and now I see there he's, making his turn, I can drag my position to the left a little bit. And now he's pretty much center frame. Put him a little left to center. So he's moving into the frame.
Yeah.
And then I can move to his next point here. And I can drag my position again like this, keep him kind of center. I can go to his next, where he's going out of frame now, but I can follow him.
Oh, that's so cool.
And there he is again.
And you'll notice, David, that up there you see all of those keyframes on the timeline, like those little diamonds that keep
Yeah.
adding in that indicates all of those keyframes. So by moving to a new part of your sequence and then clicking and changing any of those values, you're adding a new keyframe automatically.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so you don't have to click. You can, if let's say there was a point where I wanted to make a keyframe, I could just click here and then click new keyframe and add it, especially if I said, let's say I want it to pause here at some point, I can just click that keyframe and it adds it in. But like Michael said, if you just start adjusting your motion, it will add the keyframe automatically for you.
Okay.
So now if I play it through, you'll see it should follow him.
Whole different animal.
You'll notice these like jerks as it moves because it's just it. These triangle keyframes, if I click this drop down menu here in my position, you'll see that it is giving me this. Can I make this larger? I can. But it's giving me these really harsh stops in
Yeah.
the motion. So it's here and then boom, drop down to this position. Boom, move up to that position, right? And that's what these keyframes are. They're linear. If I select if I select all my keyframes, just drag and select them and right click, you're going to see
I'm sorry. You dragged over them, but how do you tell that? Oh, they turn blue. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
they
Got
turn
it.
blue. Yeah. So they'll turn blue, and that's how you know they're selected. That's how you know which one you're on. And if you're on a specific keyframe, you'll see this keyframe add remove button turns blue, letting you know you're on one actively, where if you're not, it will give you the option to add one. So I can drag over, they go blue, and if I right click on one, you'll see an option for temporal interpolation and spatial interpolation. What I'll do is I'll do temporal, and what this does is it gives you the option to ease in or ease out of your keyframes, giving them instead of this hard, jagged, now we go to the next one, it'll actually ease in and or ease out, or you can do this kind of auto, I don't know how to pronounce that, Bezier, that just lets it kind of flow. So if I click that, you'll see my graph down here now
Yeah.
changed. This is all flowing nicely. So now in theory, this shouldn't be a hard stop, go left. It should be a slow go right, ease out, ease into moving left. And so it should kind of take away from the obvious that you've moved the thing in post. So now you should see it follow slowly. Actually, it's not even really. Let me see what the problem is there. Sometimes I'll do this manually. So if I am on the first frame, I want this to ease out. I want it to slowly increase motion. And you'll see that here. The higher it goes, the faster it's moving. So it's easing out. Then in this keyframe, I'll do there. Now that looks good. Now it's slowing down into the next frame and easing out. And then this one, I should be able to just keep doing that. I think I did auto, which was the
I think you did.
mistake. Okay, that looks better now. I was confused as to why they're round. Now it should follow slowly. Yeah, there it is. It eases out and in a little bit more rather than
Yeah.
just being this hard stop. Even in the zoom, you can see instead of it just immediately starts zooming, it slowly zooms in. Well, it was only for 1 second, so it looked fast, but it eases out. And you just follow him down the whole way with those, and it should keep him in frame.
So it brings up a question of sort of gilding the lily here. So he gets in the shadows, and you want him a little more exposed. Can you change the exposure when he gets in the shadows?
Yeah, you could. So I'll show you how to do that. Well, I will caution that with video, you have to think of it where, an MP4 is basically a string of JPEGs put together, right? So the amount of leverage that you have with changing your exposure is minimal. It's not like with a raw photo where you're able to really get a lot of information out of it. So I'm sure you know that, but I just would caution against that. So if you go click into your effects panel here, you see presets, you have your Lumetri presets, audio effects, audio transitions, video effects, video transitions. So I'm going to go into video effects, and then you get a bunch of more subfolders. And there's a lot to explore here. Some of them are like they say obsolete beside them, but they still work for some reason. But I'm going to go into my color correction, and then there's my brightness and contrast. And I'll drag, you can just grab it and drag it right onto your footage.
Okay.
And when you let go, you'll see it pop up in your effects control here, right there. And this is the same thing, you can just keyframe it. So if I scrub along my timeline here and I see this is when he is in between this point and this point, he really goes into the shadows, then I can go to right where he's about to enter. I can go beside my brightness and keyframe it, scrub to when he's kind of
I'm
in
sorry,
the
I missed that.
shadows.
So you went to brightness and you
Yep.
hit and you just clicked on the keyframe, or you clicked on
Yeah,
the
you just
little
click the
clock.
little clock.
Okay, got
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
sorry, to toggle on my animations, my keyframes. Then I'll drag this a few seconds in to where he's in shadow, and then I can just like I did with the positions, grab and drag it up. Maybe I'll type in here, try like 40. I'm losing some contrast now,
Yeah.
so I'll probably click this, go to previous keyframe, back to where my brightness is, and I'll toggle on my contrast. And then I'll go up to where my brightness was, or sorry, to the next keyframe on brightness, and I'll add a new keyframe under contrast. So they're in the same positions now. And now I can just turn up my contrast to match.
Okay, cool.
I think that looks pretty good. So now it should, with him, go up. And
Wow.
now it goes up with him. It kind of blows out here and you could fiddle with it, but that's essentially what you would do, and you would just keep that as you want. And here he's about to, let's say, go back into the light. I'd add a new keyframe on both just by pressing that button. And that's where I said that button comes in handy. I don't need to adjust anything because it's where I want it to be. So I just add new keyframes and then I can drag it out into where he's in properly exposed. And if you press this little reset parameter here,
Yeah.
it'll go right back to where it originally was. So if I do that, it'll all immediately go back and it adds a keyframe automatically.
Great. So now there's nothing I can do about my shadow there, I suppose.
Yeah, now you're talking After Effects if you want to be able to bring that out, and that's beyond my abilities to take out a whole
Yeah.
shadow. There are ways to do it, but it's not perfect,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
almost better to just live with it, right?
Yeah. I think so. So yeah, so I would do the same thing to zoom in.
Well, now you wouldn't be able to zoom in any further without losing resolution. You still can, it'll let you zoom in, but you'll see if I go full screen, you're really getting a lot of artifacting because it's already at the 100%.
Oh, but we can't go I thought we could go more than 100% because we're making it 1080 footage. Or are you saying this?
So this is 100%. So 100% means that it is pixel to pixel the same resolution. Or how do I put this? It's the same pixel density as your project. So right now the project at 1080p, it's probably, I don't know, probably at a 72 ppi. I don't really know how it works with video, but whatever the pixel density is, it's the same. So right now we're at 100% scale. That means that it's pixel to pixel the same size resolution in terms of resolution, not dimension. So this is still 4K in terms of dimension, but it's being scaled up to a 1080 resolution. Does that make sense?
Because remember that when this was first brought in, David, it immediately showed the scale at 50,
So
which is
yeah, if
where it
I
is.
zoom
So
out to
actually
50,
the original, because obviously we've
Okay.
altered the position,
So
right? And everything.
it basically has stayed zoomed in, and this is the limits of the zoom in.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
without losing resolution. And like Adam said, you can absolutely continue to zoom in farther because if it's important for the scale of the video, and again, you can also ask yourself what size of screen is someone realistically going to watch this?
Yeah.
And is it important that everything is as crisp as humanly possible, or is it important that we're seeing the action of Colin skiing down the hill? You know, you get to ask yourself that, but once you go past 100, which is already like that's the 4K cropped into 1080. After you go past that, you start losing resolution, and that's totally fine if that's what you want to do. But that's the limit of it.
Okay. So obviously it's going to take a little while to get the hang of that. When do you use cropping?
cropping,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
here, what you're seeing on the bottom.
yeah.
I I don't use that often. I won't lie to you. Basically, what it does is, so right now we're at 50% resolution, which basically means, I know we went over this, but just to reiterate, like think of the program monitor here as a container, which is 1920 by 1080, and right now we have 2 pixels for every 1 pixel in this program monitor, which means you're not losing resolution. If I go up to 100, then we have one for every 200, but those pixels outside still exist. So if I, let's say, want to crop from the bottom, and I'll go to crop bottom here, and I'll do what I did with position and just click and drag up the percentage that it crops. You'll see I can keep going up till about 22%, and you can't even see it because there's pixels outside. But if I was at 50% resolution, I could crop a significant portion of this. So if I started dragging from the bottom, immediately it's removing footage.
So
And that's helpful if, let's say, you had another piece of footage underneath that you
okay,
wanted to show a portion of, right?
okay, yeah,
Because this is like a layers panel here.
Think of like crop not as crop in a photo. Think of crop as like literally removing what is visible in, as opposed to, previously. It's really more of like trim
so
almost. Like
so
you're
then
trimming off whatever side of the footage.
so you might use that if you haven't put another video layer on top of it and then made that go in the um, cropped portion.
Yeah, exactly. So if I wanted to, I can, let's say, go down to new item here and click color matte. And this is going to be the same size as my video. And I can, whatever color I want, let's just make it pure red. And that's my color, and I'll name it red. It's in my graphics folder. I can drop this underneath my footage and you can't see it. But if I wanted, let's say, it to graphic come up or whatever, I can click my keyframe on crop right. I'll go in, I don't know, 1 second, and I'll crop this to 50%. And then I'll go in another second or so, hit another keyframe, move in another second, and then I can put it back to 0, and you'll see it crops in
Yeah.
and then crops out.
Okay. Great. Okay. So cropping is a whole different thing. I mean, just using the text tool seems to be to just throw something on the snow to say what trail it is it looks pretty. I've done that a number of times. Looks pretty easy. So I
Yeah,
don't.
well, that's exactly what I would do, right? Just
Yeah.
throw it on and then
Yeah.
you can, you know, type it in. But let's say you wanted that to be, um, like, let's say you're looking at it and you said, oh, it's kind of hard to see because it's the same color as the snow. Then what you could do is you could go up into your text panel here and click New Layer and add a rectangle
Okay.
and bring it down in position on the y-axis here behind
Okay.
your text. You can you have then width and height modules, and you can bring out the width. We'll make it 1080. The width. Oh no, sorry, 1920. Right now it's above the text, but if
Yep.
I drag it
Drag it
underneath,
below. Got
then
it.
it's behind,
Okay.
right? And
That's a good little vignette right there.
so that, and then you have keyframes within here too. So all of these, the width, the height, the scale, the rotation, everything. If you go into your effects panel and you click the same thing, the shape 1 here, and drop it down, you have all those tools here with keyframes. So you can move your text around, you can move your everything. So if I wanted to, let's say, start with it being nothing, I could go into my where is it? Yeah. So go to my path and have a keyframe where I want to start and end. And if I bring my width to 0 to start, now you see that if I play it, it actually moves in that
Okay.
banner. So that's how I would do that rather than having the text and the shape on a separate layer, because now they're all together and it saves me space than losing, if I keep adding layers, I don't have to worry about, having so much going on here that I can't even see all my sequence at once.
Okay. This is great. Can I go to another topic?
Of course, yeah.
So the video, especially when it's windy, has a lot of wind noise.
Okay.
And I was using what's the fancy, what's the name of
The essential sound.
Yeah, essential sound. And I was using the thingy dingy that will like lower the music when my voice comes. I can't remember what that's called.
The ducking, yeah.
Ducking, yeah. But how can I turn down the background noise of the wind, from the fact that I'm moving and while maintaining the ducking for my voice with the music?
So are you trying to turn down the wind sound of your
Trying
audio
to
track?
turn down the wind sound, yeah. The sort of background wind sound.
Okay. Well, what I would probably try and do, and it's tricky because Premiere isn't particularly great at that. It's not really like, even with stuff you can do with graphics and audio, it's not really made for that. It's more so for the video. Like you'd be ideally doing the audio stuff in Audition and then having that imported, but I didn't even do that. I don't really know how to do that.
Yeah.
But what I would try and do is I would pick your audio type in your essential sound panel as dialogue. It will automatically give it one. So if it's not that, you can clear the audio type and pick a new one. But I would try to do that as dialogue. And then you have a few options. You can either try to enhance speech, which will get rid of all the background noise and
Okay.
basically take your voice and then use AI to try to separate it and beef it up a little bit, but sometimes it's not that great. You can try it and then you can change the mix amount to see what you like. Or you have manual repair options where honestly there's no real playbook. It's just play with it and see, right? You can try and reduce the noise, you can try to reduce the rumble. I don't think you have humming or hissing or essing issues here, but that would really be it. And then you could EQ it to try to get the frequencies of just your voice to be the ones that are, I'm sure that it's a different frequency level between the skiing and the speaking, but it would really be something you just have to play with. But this is where all your tools for that
Okay.
would be. You could also try, if you go onto your web browser and look up Adobe Audio Enhancer, there's like a podcast suite thing that Adobe has online tool where you can, if let's say you knew it was this specific clip you wanted to just pull out the voice from, you could, if you go to the beginning of the clip, wherever it is in your timeline, like let's say you had multiple clips here, and this was the clip you wanted the audio from.
Yeah.
If you go to the beginning of that clip and click I, it creates a little selection, and then if you go to the end of it and click O,
Yeah.
it selects just that clip, and then when you go to export, you can drop down in your preset, or sorry, in your format, and scroll down to the bottom and click waveform audio, and that will export just that. And as long as in your range down here it says source in to out, it will select just that portion, export it as audio. And if you go, I can't remember what the exact site is, but if you look up Adobe Audio Enhancer, it'll be the first thing that pops up, and you drop it into there, it should be able to extract just your speech, and then you could pop that back into Premiere. And it's a bit of a janky way of doing it, but I've done it before and it will really separate your
Now,
audio.
remind me, if I just wanted to reduce the volume of the clip versus the music, I can just do
Oh,
that dragging on
So if you wanted the volume of your clip to go down,
Down. Yeah.
what you would do is, I honestly, I would probably even do this in my editing, is if you go onto your effects control panel and look down, you'll see audio and volume, and you can do the same thing with keyframings, or if this is where you want it to start, you can click the little toggle beside level, and that's at 0 decibels, just what it is. And you can move forward to where you want it to be quieter, and then you can just drop it down, let's say 20 decibels, and that'll bring it down.
And what if I wanted to drop for the entire frame, just drop the volume of the background noise? So I'm skiing along and I just want to, can I drag on something to just within that clip, the audio portion of that clip, can I just bring the whole volume down?
If you wanted this entire clip here to be
Yeah.
quieter,
Yeah.
yeah, you wouldn't turn on a keyframe, and you could do the same thing. You can just make it 20 decibels quieter. So this top part here is your video, and this bottom part here is your audio.
Yeah.
So you'll see this little line running through them.
Yeah.
On video, that means opacity, and in audio, that means your volume. So you can actually just drag it and bring it down, and you'll see my opacity goes down. If I
I'm sorry.
drag
So
this
you
up,
dragged, you're in the video line, right? And you're
yeah.
dragging it down.
Yeah, that's my for my video. If I drag it down, it lowers my opacity. If I
Okay.
drag it down in audio, it changes my decibels. So now right here, I'm 15 decibels louder. That's going to be blaring. But if I drag it down,
Down.
now I'm negative 999 decibels, so it won't even
That's,
hear it.
you won't hear
So
it at
you
all.
can
Okay.
just drag a whole clip like that too, to
And
where you
then
want it to be.
how do you expand the clip so that it's, how do you expand the audio part, make it bigger so it's easier to
Bigger.
move?
If you just hover your mouse over on this side
Yeah.
near where it
Okay.
is, if you go near the line, you'll see this little tool
Yeah,
pop
I
up,
see
and then
that.
you can just
Okay.
click
Because then it would
and
be
drag
easier
it.
to move the volume down. And it's doing even, it's doing, that line is doing both the left channel and the right channel,
Yes,
even though they
evenly.
appear separate. Okay. Great. Well, I've learned so much here. We're coming up to the end of.
I guess I'll maybe throw in one additional thing, Adam. If you maybe want to just go over a couple of those brief keyboard shortcuts that you've been using at various points to, let's say, go back to the beginning of the timeline, going like just for ease of some of that, quick tips.
Yeah, okay, I can go through everything I remember. Um, these are one of those things where it's like I do them, but let me see how many I can remember. So the first thing that I would say is, just before I forget, you mentioned making the sequence, the clip larger and smaller. When you're working in your sequence, are you using a Mac, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you're working on your sequence, what you can do is if you're using a trackpad, it's really easy where you can just pinch and zoom in your trackpad, and it
Okay.
will change the scale of your sequence. If you're using a mouse, what you can do is you can hold down Option, and if you're hovering over this portion of your sequence and you drag up and down, it will zoom in and out your scale of your
Okay.
sequence. So that just helps if you want to look big picture or zoom into something. If you want to do, like, let's say you said, I want to edit this clip, you can do what I said and hover over here and find that tool and drag it up, and that's great. But if you're in a rush or you're just working quick, you can hold down Option also, but if you drag on this part, it'll move that up and down. It's the same keyboard shortcut, just where your mouse is. Here it moves it, the sequence, like wider and thinner, and here it moves your individual clip.
Got it.
And then let's see, in terms of tools, V, like any other kind of Adobe thing, is your selection tool. C is your razor tool
Yep.
that lets you splice up.
Yep.
R is your rate stretch tool. So if I took this clip and let's say I wanted, this to be in slow motion, I could click R and then drag it out, and now it's slower. You don't have any extra frames, so it's going to be choppy. But if I drag it in, it gets faster. So it doesn't change the actual like frames, it just changes the speed.
Speed. Okay.
Yeah. There too. if you right click on that, this is pretty cool actually. Like this audio clip is only 30 seconds. It doesn't cover my whole video here. But if I right click or hold and click down on the rate stretch tool and go down to remix, you can drag this out to the full length and it'll analyze it, and now it's stretched out. It's used AI to splice it up to fit.
The whole tune, the same tune through the whole thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
depending on how long your sequence is, you can make it match.
great.
Pressing T gives you your type tool. Keys, your pen tool. It's kind of obvious. Yeah, what other keyboard
Yeah,
shortcuts?
I
Oh,
don't. I haven't used the pen tool yet. I don't even know what it does.
that's if you wanted to build, shapes or masks. Like I could drag around him like this, and then, you know, that's a shape here. Select the pen tool and then drag around and mask him out, which, oh, because I have a shape layer. Sorry, forgive me here. If I go down to my opacity and select the pen tool now that I'm on the right layer, it should mask him out completely. So the pen tool is just for things like that when you want fine adjustments of things, or if you were making keyframes in here, like if I wanted to uh, do an opacity keyframe, there already is one, but I could grab my pen tool and I could just add a keyframe in here
Oh, okay.
and bring it down, and you'll see the opacity goes down slowly. That's all that's really for.
Last thing, Adam, could you just, again, there was a couple keyboard shortcuts of like going back to the beginning of your timeline, going to where your playhead is, what those are.
To jump between clips, if you look on your sequence here on the left-hand side, you have these V1, V2, V3, it's, video 1, 2, 3. If I have, I'll drag this up here. If I have video 1 toggled on and I use my arrow keys and well, so first of all, on your arrow keys, if I want to go frame by frame, I can go right and left, and it automatically just goes frame by frame. If I click up and down, it jumps to the beginning and end of the clips. So
Okay.
if I have video 1 toggled on, I can click up, it goes to the beginning of this clip. I click down, it goes to the end. But you'll see it skipped this clip up here
Yep.
because I don't have video 2 toggled. So if
Yep.
I wanted to also do for that, I'd have to toggle that. And now if I click up, it goes to the beginning of the next clip.
Okay.
Michael, is there any other ones you wanted me to show? Or?
No, I think that was mainly it. Thanks for watching. We hope you found that helpful. We've got plenty more tips that we'll be planning to release in the coming weeks. If there's anything you'd like to learn how to do in Premiere Pro, please let us know in the comments below.